where do you see the connections between, you talked about the, the practices and the healing of the indigenous people, etc. How much do you see a connection between spirituality and healing, and where has it gone right and where does it sometimes go wrong?
So first of all, spirituality is one of these words that
again gets thrown around. Yeah.
It gets thrown around. Who knows what somebody means when they talk about it?
Yeah.
So we can only talk about it in terms of what you mean by it and,
yes,
and
yes.
what I mean by it.
So yeah, I liked what you said, that there are ancient traditions that focus heavily on inner healing.
Yeah.
And I'll explain my challenge. The challenge I see is that often even these ancient timeless traditions have now become externalized and institutionalized. So they've lost their purity of the inner healing that's required.
And they become commodified.
Correct, right.
Yeah, which is what will happen in a materialist society.
Yeah.
I spent time with some indigenous people earlier this year in a ceremony. What I was struck by is the deep, deep, deep connection with nature. In fact, even the connection is inadequate a word. I'm talking about unity. Like they just felt so alive to every blade of grass and every tree and the mountain that overlooked our ceremony and the bison that were in the field. So for me, spirituality, if it means anything at all, it means sense of connection to something larger, which is difficult to define and may be different for every person or for every group, but it's something beyond the limited confines of both body and the egoic mind. Now, I think that's our nature as human beings. I can't prove it, but that's my sense. And I think, and certainly when you talk about indigenous traditions, they talk about the medicine wheel, which is the quadrants involve our emotions and our physical bodies and our social relationships and our spiritual selves. And we have to be sort of grounded in all four of those quadrants to be fully whole. So I think there's something in that spirituality that is really essential to us. What that is, I think each person has to discover for themselves if they don't have a tradition that already grounds them in it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're reminding me of my time that I spent with some groups in Hawaii, and they had a song for the sun and the sea, and they had a beautiful ritual where when a child is born, the umbilical cord is placed on the earth, and then they carve almost like a pattern there to remind the child that this is your connection to the earth. And I always thought that was such a beautiful ritual. I was wondering whether you've seen or whether you've looked at all any aspects of reincarnation or past lives or trauma across lives or seen any connections or study in that space.
I've had people talk to me about their experiences, and there's a rabbi I met once who told me that in ancient times he was a priest in Egypt.
Wow.
He was in no way a lunatic, or psychotic. He was a very grounded, lovely man, and he was convinced. My mind doesn't go there. I've read something about these traditions, the Tibetan tradition of the Bardo, and you probably know a lot more about it than I do, but I have not personally experienced it. And my mind, as I've experienced my mind so far, hasn't found a space for knowing what that really means. I understand it intellectually.
Yes.
But there's nothing in me resonates with it as far as I can recognize.
Yeah.
Now, maybe at some point I'll have some huge awakening, or maybe after I die there'll be a huge joke on me, saying, you didn't believe, buddy? Well, here it is. But frankly, right now, if you ask me, I'd say nothing in me goes there or even wants to. That's my truth.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no. I always find it fascinating for people who study trauma, especially when you, as you said, that no child starts at a blank slate. They start with a makeup to some degree, and so that's why I was intrigued. But Dr. Maté, it's been so beautiful talking to you, because I feel like I get to ask you questions that I wouldn't often receive the answers and the quality of answers, the depth of answers that you can provide. I see you as a true elder, as a wise person in our society, and I respect you a lot for that. And
well, thanks so much. I can tell you quite honestly that this is not an interview like I've ever had before. Thank you so much.
No, well, thank you, and I hope this is the first of many.